Hold on.
Find your screen.
I was reading my notes. There we are. Hey,
you gotta find your screen.
I got to read the show notes before I do the show, man.
Are you screenified?
I am now. I'm good.
Screen enlightened. How you doing, Jason?
Doing awesome. Doing awesome. Waiting for the rain. It's going to rain today, though. That stinks.
Going to rain and get cold. Welcome back. It's been a couple of minutes. Welcome back to our IT Talk podcast. Jason, do you want to raise your hand? There we go. Hello, Jason. Jason Andersen, Vice President and Principal Analyst at More Insights.
That's right.
And I'm Matt Kimball. I'm just a guy.
Just a wayward soul.
Just a wayward soul. We're here to talk all things IT related for More Insights and Strategy. Jason, we got a bit to cover, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that I do not want to focus on the Red Sox, the Celtics, or the Bruins because it's all bad news. So we're not going to do sports talk at the end. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, good. All right. But we do have a lot to talk about. We talk all things AI. We talk all things data center. We talk all things hardware, software, agents, models, you name it. We talk about it. And Jason is the king of AI. And I like your title of what you wanted to talk about. Reflections on spring. You're so introspective. What do you want to talk about with this?
So, we go to a lot of events in the spring, Matt, as you know. You're on your way to another one tomorrow. I'm on my way to another one on Monday. Fortunately, I only have a 6-hour flight, and you'll be on a plane for a year. So, but nonetheless, you start to kind of piece these things together. One of the benefits of analysts is that we see all the different things. We don't just go to the people we buy stuff from, right? We go to all the shows, right? And from an AI perspective, there were only really 3 stories that just kept getting repeated over and over and over again. And I just kind of wanted to talk about that and what it kind of means to the general AI picture. I think in general, it's kind of a good thing because you're starting to see the AI market gel into certain categories. So now we're starting to get to the point where companies are realizing what are the necessary pieces and parts and how those parts should hang together. So in some levels, it's a sign of maturity of the overall space, which also kind of signals to the market, okay, maybe we could start to buy this stuff and have it really deliver value, right, versus experimental. Yep. So it is a sign of maturity, but at the same time, it's also kind of hard because you have to look at it and go, well, why is this different? I've heard this same pitch 6 times now, 8 times now. What makes it special? Yep. And so it does make the job of the analyst a little harder to find those crumbs of differentiation, so to speak. So, but I figured I'd hit on the 3 things everybody's talking about real quick. The first one is this whole thing about stacks, right? Is that, if you're not a tech vendor now, if you don't have some sort of AI defined stack where you have layers of capability, it's not good enough just to have a model and a chat bot anymore, right? You need to have multi-model, and you have to have a development tool suite, and you have to have all these pieces in order to have a stack. Yep. And everybody has their preferences as to what one is or where it is. And the funny part is, if you look at them, they all have the same pieces. That if you look at it like the classic architecture layer cake that we all see all the time, all the layers are the same. It's just a question of what order upon which they're stacked and what's on top of what, right? Yep. And those are all to really just benefit the vendors to show off whatever they want to focus the customer's attention on. But here's the real part of this that's interesting, is that these stacks are now largely undifferentiated, right? I mean, they're kind of like, so what's going to make you want to buy, right? And a lot of it now at this point is kind of coming down to relationships. Yes. You can bring your own model, right? Yep. If you like Claude, we don't care. Use Claude, right? If you like OpenAI, great, go with it, right? The tooling's all pretty simple, which will bring me to my second point in a second. In terms of citizen developers, so the point is that it's starting to come down to everybody's trying to platformize everybody and get as much of their context and content into their homes respectively.
Yes.
And using their platform, because that's going to be the ultimate form of stickiness and lock-in as we move to this next phase of build out, right?
Yep.
And it's tricky times because there's not a lot of interoperability. So it's kind of funny because it's a sign of maturity, but I'm also going to suggest to end users, you have to be mature to realize that you're going to need to build your own integration strategy, your own integration plans, not only with what you already own, but what you might think you want to buy.
That's right. Yep.
You know, every single data story this year in the AI space focused on, hey, basically everybody was comparing themselves to Databricks and Snowflake. I mean, they were trying to make them sound like that, right? But that may not be the answer for you, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is the engagement layer. The second theme is what I call the Claudification of AI. Instead of cloudification, now it's Claudification, because almost everybody has their own desktop client and they're all trying to mimic Claude Code and or Claude Cowork, right? And that's pretty common. The systems of engagement layer is funny because it doesn't look that interesting because it's kind of a blank screen with just a box in the middle. But the power underneath is actually quite profound. And what you can do with these things is quite interesting if you know how to harness it. And harnessing it for me includes watching a lot of YouTube videos and reaching out and asking people a ton of questions. But I would say that interestingly enough, despite that everything kind of looks like Claude now, and despite the fact that there's this kind of notion that they're all the same, the truth is that's where a lot of the differentiation now sits. Things like skill files and how you load content in and where the content loads and how it uses context. So while these really expensive platforms are kind of undifferentiated, the flip side is this Claude interface, which doesn't look differentiated, actually is, right? So that's kind of an interesting counterpoint. And then the last one is this whole thing. Everybody's talking about governance and security and all these great things. But here's the thing, right? A lot of times it's really an extension of what was already in place. So they basically have opened up these controls, or they've modified the controls such that they'll work well with agents or certain types of security parameters, right? But I'm not convinced. And here's why I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that these controls can scale. It's one thing to have an observability application be able to manage an application that is a long-living application, right? It's something that gets built and it's expected to stay installed and deployed for a couple of years, and it gets a quarterly update. An agent can just be a collection of documents, right? So now all of a sudden, instead of having a code pipeline and CI and CD and all this other complexity that we built for applications, agents are almost more like a content management problem. And content management itself is a much different management environment than what you see with classic applications. So this kind of whole thing, like even something as simple as this, just the example I'll give you is, if you're a content creation company like More Insights is, and somebody wants to change how what the standards are for writing a heading, right? So like a heading on top of a bunch of paragraphs for a section. Maybe you want to change the rules on that. Maybe you don't want to, maybe you want them all to be capitalized or uncapitalized, or you don't want to use a full sentence or whatever those rules are. Well, in the old days, right, in a marketing department or an analyst firm, you would send an email to everybody to say, hey, morons, stop doing it this way, change it, right? What you need to do now is different. It's more like code, right? Where you should just go into the editor agent or the editor skill, change that document, version control that document, and then tell everybody, hey, update your skill in Claude Code or in OpenAI or whatever, or Codex, and you update it. So now all of a sudden it's like you're doing, you're managing code, but it's not code, it's content. And then you're pushing it out, and all of a sudden it should automatically fix that for you instead of me remembering I got an email from our editor last week and, I got to make the connection. It should be automatic. Frankly, they don't need to tell me anymore. They just need to fix the editor, right? So this whole thing about governance is crazy because everybody thinks, I'm just going to treat agents like apps, but they're actually fundamentally different, and they're much lighter weight. And by the way, they're also going to be much more short-lived. In many cases, they'll die fast. So the truth is they really are talking to agents, but they're not there yet. they're talking to agent governance, I should say more specifically. But frankly, they're not there yet. They're basically they're applying an old construct to a current problem. And what's going to happen is over the course of the next 12 months, as people actually deploy these solutions, they're going to find out, geez, this doesn't scale as well, or it introduces performance challenges, or quite frankly, something broke, right? And we had to fix it. So it's funny because that's like the new thing that everybody's talking about. Nonetheless, it's still got a ways to go. So those are my three big takeaways from the spring was, the notion of differentiation and where the differentiation is happening. And then also this notion of, okay, finally people are talking about management and risk and guardrails in a meaningful way, but the technology the technology still hasn't quite caught up to the rhetoric yet. So we'll see where that leaves us.
Let me give you my one takeaway based on your three takeaways. AI, enterprise AI is nascent. That's it.
Yeah.
We're so early in the game. It's like if you took 10 really smart people and put them in a room and said, what does the enterprise AI landscape look like 5 years from now? You're going to get 10 different opinions, all well-grounded, based in logic, but it is so early. And you hit on it. It's like we're looking at this brand new world through the lens of what we've done for the last 30 years. And there is a huge delta there. And there's a course correction that's going to come along. It might be the wrong word, a calibration that comes along where we're going to have to align to what this new reality looks like. And it's everything from infrastructure to applications, right? Which are no longer applications, to, small models and data, everything gets entirely turned on its head.
And the way they're billing is a transformational business case is the hardest sell possible. The easy sell is replacing something else. And let me put it this way. If you want to do content management with AI, that's great. You're adding content management on top of your website management, your editing tools. It's not like it's not like, hey, if I just paid for these tokens, I can rip this other thing out and then it's a swap. It's like, no, you have to pay more. So there is a whole function of, it would be much easier if it was, hey, here's an entirely new way to do productivity tools, right? But it's not. You still need Office or Google Workspace in order to make this stuff create content. It doesn't make content on its own or make it editable. It leverages those tools to make it editable. So
it's so fun. It's a fun game to watch, man. I guess it keeps
is.
folks like us employed, right? Or relevant is probably a better word.
Right, for sure.
Sit back and kind of eat popcorn and toss stones at them from the sideline.
So you're just not going to see the adoption. The adoption signals you're going to see are so departmental and or use case specific right now. Versus, to your point, the nascent nature of it is going to keep adoption fairly slow for some time heading forward, another year or two maybe.
18 to 24 months. Fun stuff, man. It really is fun, and it's fun to track, and it's impacting every facet of the IT market, right? From software and apps to OSs to you name it, right? To the solutions. And that brings us to the next topic, which is, it's been a Dell of a couple of weeks, right? Holy hell, Dell. But this is kind of where you see the magnitude of the sea change that's coming with AI, right? Let's kind of start recent and work backwards on this one. So Dell released their numbers yesterday. They almost seem made up. It's hard to, I don't focus on, as you know, I focus on ISG, the infrastructure stuff. But their guidance for 2027 2Q is somewhere around 45 billion, I think. And they're saying, hold on, let me stop. Let me flip this around. ISG came in at Infrastructure Solutions Group. So that's storage, servers, networking came in at a cool $29 billion. If you're wondering at home what that looks like, that is a 48% growth quarter over quarter. That is
Unreal.
a 181% growth year over year. ISG grew 181% from like 10 billion up to almost 30 billion in a year in a quarterly revenue number. Absolutely crazy. And they're going to follow this 40% quarter over quarter. They're given guidance that next quarter will be 75 billion that they're going to grow by. And their AI server revenue is going to be about 16 billion. It is a crazy growth. And if anybody is wondering if there's a bubble to this, the answer is yes. However, you have to take this into consideration. Unlike the .com, which we all kind of go back to, anybody who has gray or no hair goes back to the .com era as kind of a parallel for AI. Unlike that era where you had this kind of build up in what seemed like a couple of years and then kind of all these stupid websites and e-services went out of business and the floor fell out. AI is a very long tail. You had a training wave, which was huge and significant.
Yeah.
But then you have this inference wave that's coming, which is a much longer tail. It's much bigger, and it has a whole lot more requirements around computational, right? Because it's so distributed, right? So you don't have as much in one spot, but it goes everywhere. And when I am an enterprise and I'm like, man, I have to do this AI factory and then all of these AI things, around my enterprise to make sure this thing runs right for the different types of inference I'm activating, I want to go with the company I know. And that company is a company like Dell. And that is why you see such crazy numbers coming out of them. It ain't slowing down anytime fast. And guys listening at home, this isn't a premium because they're squeezing and gouging based on the supply chain. This is a legitimate need they're filling out in the market. Are the prices a little bit higher? Yeah, but take note, it's not like they're making a whole bunch more margin on this. They're making less margin than they used to. So they are truly fulfilling the needs of what's out there in the enterprise. It is absolutely crazy. So fun to watch, so crazy, but it's like just amazing.
It's also this huge reset on just expectations, right? I mean, like if you're looking at like a trend line or something like that, when you have companies that are revenue growing at that rate and sustainability and so forth, you kind of over the years as you're following this space, you get used to a certain number. Like, wow, if a company strings together 20% growth 3 quarters in a row, that's great. If a company's strung together just give you an example. A company that's stringing together 20% growth quarter over quarter every quarter is AWS.
Yeah,
they're not seeing the types of excitement that other companies are. It's not because 20% is 90% of the businesses in the world, or most of the businesses in the world, would be thrilled with 20% quarter.
Oh yeah, they'd sell their souls for it. Yeah,
but the whole mathematics has changed. One of our clients yesterday, and I'll leave them nameless, put out a release yesterday that they're making a $5 billion AI investment. And somebody reached out and said, "What do you think of that?" And I basically said, "Who cares?" Right? Yeah. $5 billion in the world of AI is nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. When you've got people like Alphabet coming up and saying, well, we're going to drop about 200 billion this year.
Right.
5 billion almost sounds foolish. Now, again, 2 years ago, if somebody said I'm making a $5 billion AI investment, we would have laughed them out of the room.
Yep.
We're like, why are you spending that? That's crazy money. Why are you spending that? But now it's like not even interesting.
Yep.
Because when you actually run the numbers and you look at it, you go, this is actually, I said, this actually, you putting this out there gives me, slightly more concern than less. Right? Yeah. Like, yeah. I'm like, really? All you're putting in is 5?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Something wrong?
Yeah.
Right. So the entire, the entire prism upon which we look at these things is changing, and it's wild. You would have not expected that out of Dell, that type of a trajectory. I mean, their whole mission in life, to your point, is they're a value provider.
Yep.
It's not like they're, pushing. They're not necessarily pushing the envelope very hard here. They're providing mainstream. They're the General Motors of compute, right? They've got something for everybody. They're not like at the high end or at the low end. They're the safe bet.
Safe button. They're the safe bet. Yeah.
So,
and to take it into context, you're talking about 75% growth guidance. You're talking about server growth this last quarter that was 92%. You're talking about year over year 181%. We're talking on tens of billions of dollars. We're not talking. Yeah, I mean that's what is just it's mind blowing. It's anyway. Yeah.
The other thing is the refresh cycles. I mean that's one thing that I actually just put out a piece on ERP, AI and ERP today. It actually just posted on our website today. And one of the things that came up, it was an interesting piece because the notion started with, hey, you can't just bolt AI onto an ERP system because it wreaks havoc. And you go, okay. But then when you dig deeper into it, what you find is that part of the reason why it wreaks havoc is because people aren't upgrading these systems very regularly.
Right.
Everybody is, since interest rates went up and since we had a lot of global economic uncertainty there's a whole bunch of cascading reasons why people have kind of they've kind of slowed down the refreshes. Part of it is, frankly, because they didn't necessarily need the refreshes unless a vendor was putting a gun to their head for security updates or something like that.
Right.
So they held off. And now the reason it's coming around is they finally have a reason to upgrade.
Yeah.
And that reason is, are you ready for AI? Right. So it's not just, I bet you if you looked, and I wonder if Dell brought it up. Did Dell bring up how many of those systems actually had GPUs in them? I bet you it wasn't anywhere near as many as people thought.
No, it's
right?
not.
Because they have to fix the databases, they have to upgrade the apps, they have to the list of things to do to get ready and really take advantage of this stuff is huge. And frankly, people have been lazy, right?
Yeah.
They haven't kept up on tech debt.
It's almost like I would almost be afraid to call it a refresh cycle because it is what's required is so incredibly different from what they've been doing in the past.
Right. It's a step function.
Yeah, it's not incremental. Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. I think people have gotten into the mode of, and we can thank our friends at Intel and AMD for this. You get these high multi-core platforms that go into a data center, and you're almost over capacity for the traditional workload, and it gets you into a 3 years to 4 years to 5 years to I hear folks keeping stuff in for 6, 7, 8 years. That's kind of where we're at. But the problem is, to what you're saying, that infrastructure, it ain't the infrastructure you need for tomorrow. And it's a refactoring. Anyway, it's fun to watch. All right, so hold on. That's part one. Part two. So that comes on the heels of a Dell Tech World where they really kind of they did some stuff that I was a huge fan of. So three big takeaways. First is, they've gone from Dell's moving away from I'm going to sell you servers, I'm going to sell you storage, I'm going to sell you networking to I'm going to sell you solutions. Part one. Part two, I'm going to go into each of these, double click on each of these very quickly. Part two, it's no longer, that storage is some kind of like passive participant in the IT infrastructure world. It's become far more active with AI. And number three, Dell is leaning into AI coming on-prem. All right, so let me do a quick double click on these and we can get your thoughts. So one, selling components to AI infrastructure. Okay, everyone is selling AI infrastructure and solutions. Here's what I like, okay? Everyone has been selling NVIDIA's AI factories for the last couple of years, last few, and it's all been about bending metal around NVIDIA and selling those NVIDIA chips. And they're valuable chips, by the way. This is not to degrade NVIDIA in any way, but it has taken the value out of the OEM providers or the OEM and put it solely into the hands of NVIDIA. So at Dell Tech World, Dell announces what they're calling PowerRack, which is really the DGX SuperPod, NVIDIA's DGX SuperPod. So, but it's like they're getting back to moving value away from just the GPU and into the entirety of the infrastructure. It's the interconnects, it's the storage, it's the networking, it's the way they bring them together, it's the management that they build in. They're really starting to go back to we have to be a value play in this AI infrastructure and not just a box mover. Love that story. I'll let you weigh in on
Which
that.
is what the cloud guys do already.
Yes.
Right. So they're
yes.
doing, it's not like this is revolutionary. It's how are we democratizing what cloud guys already do, which is great. It's great.
It's not revolutionary at all. It's just been a little bit, as an analyst and somebody who's lived in this world for a long time, it's been a little tiring to hear about, it's like the Brady Bunch, Marcia, right?
Yeah.
Like NVIDIA, and everything is NVIDIA. It's nice to see these OEMs coming back and saying, look, we have a play here and there is a value and we're going to lean into that more and not just, all right. Part two, storage is big, right? So PowerStore Elite launched, Lightning file system launched, AI data platform, major updates, object scale, major enhancements, data search and orchestration stuff built in. There's so much that that Dell has leaned into on the storage side that has really kind of brought it from just they've done two things, right? One is they've firmly established themselves as the enterprise storage play. And you can't underplay that, right? There's a lot of new and flashy stuff, right? And cool stuff. But it goes back to, there's a trust factor, and Dell is a trusted entity and a trusted player in enterprise storage. And they've embraced the fact that they are a safe choice. But they've also said, look, the market's not getting away from us. We understand that, that storage and data have merged greatly. And this is bigger than just, putting a bunch of drives in a box and making them available for, what happens, right? Data prep, data movement, data governance, this is all important stuff. And they've leaned very heavily into that space. So they've kind of made that evolution, if you will, from just a pure, lots of drives and lots of boxes and us, to we're more of an active player in your data strategy. Love that story. I'll let you weigh in on that before I go to three.
I don't have a lot there. What I will say is that it's the right time because, again, every SaaS and every cloud play is, hey, give us more of your data. And, I think customers are looking at options, right? And, so there's a conversation being had. And I think it's really interesting that your traditional on-premise and infrastructure plays are able to have that conversation and fight it out.
Yep. And it's good for them because, wherever your data gravity is, that's where,
No doubt.
Yeah. All right. Part three. Dell believes AI is moving on-prem and sovereign. I love what they're doing here. I would say I think AI is, at the end of the day, it's a hybrid play. There's going to be stuff that gets done on-prem. There's going to be stuff that gets done in the cloud. And I think not virtually, but a large majority of the companies are going to kind of live in this hybrid world. But what I like about what they're doing is they're finally acknowledging that this is not just a, AWS, Azure, Google, Oracle, CoreWeave. This is not just a cloud play. There is a real need on-prem, and we are that company that's going to lean in and kind of be your on-prem, AI kind of cloud connection, right? That anchor for what's being done in the cloud as well. Love the story. And I'm going to shut up with that and kind of let you weigh in on that one because I know you have a lot of opinions.
It's super interesting because I know there's a couple things I can't talk about quite yet. I believe I will next episode, though. I have some info that I can't share today, but I will share the next one about that. I do think there's a renaissance going on in the on-premise world, and it's not just limited to the hardware guys. I think there's some software plays you're going to see getting really serious about this because of OpenClaw, quite frankly. Right. And what I think is really starting to happen is this kind of notion where people, to your point, sovereignty means one thing in the eyes of the government, right, and in the eyes of laws, which is important, of course, but sovereignty also it has a lot to do with personal autonomy, and there's a whole bunch of other things. And I do think that there's an element of people wanting, ultimately, you're going to see the gravity, the personal extension. You're going to see agents and things like that become a personal extension, and part of that personal extension is not trusting it to any one source. And you're going to see expertise markets begin to open up, and that's really going to become pretty. I mean, this whole thing about like if you kind of look at the tea leaves again, I'll just bring up this piece of research I did, where the idea of the research wasn't to say, hey, you shouldn't use a horizontal general purpose agent against an ERP system. That wasn't what was said at all. What was said was, if you just do that and you're not ready for it, you're not going to get the result you want. But if you kind of look at what was written for now and kind of state of the art, and then look ahead, you're going to see that the notion, and Google kind of said this at I/O last week too, and Google showed this at I/O last week with their new Gemini stuff, is that the idea is going to be, you're going to have an agent that's for you, and you're going to give that agent things, and then it's the agent's job to orchestrate which models, which agents, and which pieces of expertise to leverage based upon your preferences, memories, or whatever, right? So these things are about to become a lot more personal. And I think that person can mean literally the individual. It could also mean a team or an enterprise. And all of a sudden expertise is going to change. So, you know, instead of being, you know, you may be in a situation where, you know, a company where you're sourcing computers, and you know, your procurement agent is talking to 6 selling agents, and there's no humans involved, and the computers just show up at your loading dock, and take computers and make that, you know, cans of soda, toilet paper, or, you know, industrial presses. It doesn't matter. You know, the idea is that it's going to change how people scale, and it's going to change how people work. And the only way we can achieve some of those, I'm going to call them AI dreams, is if we actually bring this stuff closer to the humans, not, you know, through an app or a CLI or a browser. That's, you know, and to be honest, what's interesting to me, and again, you and I both aren't stock guys. This isn't financial advice. We always try to make that point very clear. But what's going to happen when OpenAI and Claude do go on the market, in the public market? What's really going to happen to their valuation? Because when you see what Dell is announcing, and when you see the momentum around open weight models, and you see what some of these other things that are going on, I don't know if their valuations are going to be as high as people think, because quite honestly, there's meaningful threats. There's meaningful threats coming to the fore. And like I said, I don't think it's not only Dell, right? It's not only server providers. No, it's going to be phone guys. It's going to be people making all kinds of new types of hardware that we haven't even thought of yet. And quite honestly, you know, have we really seen an AI laptop that's perfect yet? No. Will it get there? Maybe, right? So like I said, stay tuned, because there's more news on this front. This on-prem movement is going to be the next thing.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more.
Easier. And by the way, to tie it all back, bring it all full circle, the governance problem gets a lot easier when it's all in your house and not across 6 clouds.
You are not kidding. You are not kidding. Yes.
So.
Hey, all right. So listen, moving on. So we got a lot going on. Where's Waldo? What do you got coming up over the next few weeks there, Mr. Andersen?
I am thrilled to be going to Microsoft Build next week. And there's five solid reasons. I'll give them super quick. Number one, it's a great event. Last year's event was awesome. I loved it. Number two, it's at my favorite place to do an event in San Francisco, which is that old military base. I always forget the name of it.
The Presidio.
Number three, it's by the Presidio, yep. Number three is that place has an Equator coffee there, which is literally my favorite type of coffee in the world. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of reasons. But yeah, Microsoft Build is next. Then I come home for a week in between, and then I'm off to AWS Analyst Summit in New York, which, you know, honestly, I'm kind of interested. That one, I'm excited for Build, and I've got the preview. And like I said, they got a lot of great stuff to talk about. But AWS is going to be interesting because they've been doing a lot of, they've been trying a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to hear how they frame that, because it's been, as is AWS, they breadcrumb a lot, and sometimes it's hard to draw a circle around it. But I think we'll learn a lot in 2 weeks, and then man, July and August are quiet, but I'm already getting calls about September. So Dreamforce, Tech Exchange, is a whole bunch of stuff coming down the pike for September, October already. So it's crazy.
Get ready, my friend.
How about you, Mr. Taiwan?
Yeah, I'll be at Computex next week with my friends from Intel, first and foremost, and NVIDIA and Qualcomm and Furiosa AI and a whole bunch of others in my tech. I'll be there. I come back. I'll be with Broadcom after that up in Boston, lovely downtown Boston, at the haunted Omni Parker Hotel.
There you go.
And then after that, I've got a week with Everpure for their Accelerate, and then a week with HPE Discover, for Discover, and then
Then it's July 4th, man.
What's that?
Then it's July 4th. You're basically booked for June.
I'm booked through June, and then mid-July we have A&D's great Advancing AI event, which is going to be a blast. There's so much going on, dude. Remember, I know we talked about this, and I'll be quick, but there used to be like, you had these spurts of like activity, but
it's very seasonal.
12 months now. Yeah, it's now the season is from January to December. So
yes, but you're more popular than me, so you travel more.
No,
so,
I'm not more popular than you. Anyway,
but then I'm smarter than you because I don't travel as much.
that's what it is. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, the other reason that just to bring it back to baseball for a sec, the other reason to go to the AWS event in 2 weeks is because we're going to the Yankees. And as a Boston fan, I will say, as a Boston fan who did do some time living in Manhattan, I have an enormous amount of respect for their baseball organizations. I do have a preference for one. I do love the Mets, but I am excited to go to a Yankees game because I do enjoy going. So,
are you going to be in a suite, or are you going to be down in the seat?
Well, given that I'm an analyst, I will get very special treatment. Yes, so I will be in a suite for the Yankees. Have not been in a suite for the Yankees since the 2004 playoff run, by the way.
Oh, wow. That was still in the old stadium.
Yeah, I was in the old stadium, and I was at one of those games. Yes, I was.
Good for you, man.
Yes, thanks to current client and ex-employer IBM for those tickets, but Amazon will be thank you for the tickets in 2 weeks.
I did a suite there a few years back for a company. They treat you well.
They sure do.
Yeah. Anyway. Sure do. All right, my friend, this is a great chat. Thanks for taking the time. And for those at home, we hope you got a lot out of this. Please do like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, like and subscribe anyway. And as Jason alluded to, what we talk about, we're just two tech guys talking and having fun and shooting the breeze. Don't take it as financial advice. And if you do, shame on you. With that said, you have a wonderful weekend, and I guess we'll be back in a couple of weeks, right?
Yep.
All right,
later.
Thanks, buddy.